Welcome to the Bionicle Inspiration series. Today, we're going to be talking all about the Makuta Phantoka. Of course, the Phantoka wave of Bionicle being the wave of sets that came out in winter 2008, so actually quite a while now. And according to old Bionicle fandom wiki, it says that the phrase Phantoka comes from the Matoran language meaning spirits of the air, and was the name given to the Toa Nuva, Liwa, Kupaka, Pahatu, and the Makuta, Chiroks, Vampra, and Antraz. So I'm going to be talking specifically about the Makuta from that wave. Maybe not all of them, but at least a good amount of them. I think I'm just leaving out Icarax because, well, he's cool, but I didn't put him in this episode because I only just remembered now, and it's too late to change that. So I apologize, Icarus fans. It is just not your day. But it's going to be a good episode of Biss anyway. So we're going to be talking about the Makuta Phantoka today. And hey, maybe if you're thinking about revamping some of them, because there's some awesome characters, this could give you some ideas for ways that you might look at these characters in a different light. Because I think all of these do that decently well. They reimagine it in a fun way. And just in general, it's always good to revamp any sets that you might have enjoyed in the past. So hopefully some of this will give you some ideas. Before we begin, a very, very quick update. I wouldn't normally sort of say this sort of thing, but people have actually been very interested in it and have been asking for it for quite a bit now. So I have recently opened a P.O. Box. So if you are interested in sending anything my way, the P.O. Box's address is P.O. Box 1297, Canning Bridge, Applecross, WA 6153, Australia. So if you're interested in sending something my way, that is a way to do so. People have been asking, so here you go. But of course, you are under no obligation to do so. If you would like to, it is there for you to do that. If not, that's okay too. No obligation, like I said. So without further ado, I just wanted to let that be known because people were interested in that, and I might do a separate video just highlighting that and a few other things that people have been asking for as well. But stay tuned for that. But here we are in the present moment. We're going to be focusing on these Makuta MOCs. Let's begin with the very first one. It's by Cubic, and this is Brothers of Hatred, Chiroks. Chiroks, a character very close to my heart. So Chiroks is cool, and I think this is a very cool revamp of Chiroks as well. If you look at Biosector, if you look at the Bionicle Wiki, and you read up a bit about this character, he was not a nice guy. So he sort of did a lot of like experimentation. He did a lot of like mutation and different stuff like that. Like I was reading this one thing where he like made these different creatures and then let it attack this town to the point of the town being renamed to the creatures, which were called Visorak. Which I don't know if they actually were Visorak or not. I don't know, it was a confusing story. There's some parts of the Bionicle lore that make you scratch your head. But yeah, he did a lot of like experimentation and lab experiments and all sorts of crazy weird things with different beasts, Rahi, and animals, and mutated them to his will. Not very nice stuff, but he is a Makuta. He is a bad guy. That's what you expect of a character like this. So I like that he's kind of taken those elements of his backstory and actually really put it into the character this time. The original Chiroks was a lot more bat-like, and honestly, a lot of this wave of Makuta was sort of very inspired by bats, which made sense because it was, like we said before, with Phantoka being sort of very air-related and flying. All of these characters were flying in some fashion, so bats makes sense for a bit of animal inspiration for your villainous bad guys there. Which, actually, that just in general is a good idea if you're looking to make any kind of Bionicle MOC. Study some animals. There might be certain ways that their bodies look, or the way that they're physically formed, or the way that they hold themselves, or whatever that might give you a bit of inspiration for how to sort of physically design your characters. So always study the animal kingdom. It's always a good thing to do. But yeah, so the original is a bit more bat-like. This version here still has elements of that, but he's really kind of focused in on that almost sort of like scientist aesthetic. So he's given him some glasses here, which is a very little fun design using some minifigure magnifying glass pieces, which kind of makes him look a bit like a nerd, which is fantastic. We're all nerds here. So I think that design's really fun, really different. So I can certainly get behind that. And I like that he's given him a bit of a sort of kind of like a lab coat, but almost sort of like a Victorian era, like almost sort of steampunky kind of lab coat. Very kind of like leather and very almost sort of like I was going to say a plague doctor, maybe not quite. I don't know. Still, it's a very distinct, very different lab coat for something that you would expect someone who doesn't necessarily do the best sort of medical practice. It's not very sort of like modern. It looks a little outdated. So maybe his medical practices are a little outdated as he experiments on animals and does inhumane, unethical things. But I love that idea. I love the idea of giving him glasses and a sort of lab coat with a bit of a sort of popped collar almost on the sides there, the little brown Technic panels there. That works well. Yeah, it looks really, really nice. And I think that extra sort of pop of brown and white up against the black there also just works well. The original kind of every single Makuta in this wave, they originally had that cage with the sort of shadow leech, like nest, whatever that was called, that sort of orange orb. And all of them had that, and, it was a very fun little play feature and a cool design, but no reason you have to keep that when you're revamping it, so it's nice to see a very different take on the torso, and I think one that really ties back to the backstory and just works super well. It's really cool, isn't it? I also like that he's given him these black dragon wing pieces. So these come in a variety of different colors from a variety of different sets, even dating back to, I want to say like 2004. I think they first appeared in the LEGO Vikings wave. Pretty sure they did, but they've appeared in a lot of sets more recently and just over time in general. These black wings specifically came on the Ender Dragon Minecraft set, one of the few Ender Dragons that we've got, and they look great. And, I think what's cool about them is it's just one piece, so it's kind of manageable and it's sort of lightweight. If you want to build wings that are really like customizable and posable and use a bunch of different pieces, it can be a bit of a challenge. They're not always the easiest thing to build, but we do have wing-related episodes of the Bionicle Inspiration series if that's something you want to look into, so maybe give those a watch if you're looking to build some wings. But regardless, the fact that this is lightweight, just easy to manage, and really does look sort of more sinister and bat-like is perfect. So I love the fact that he's taken a more simple route, but a really effective route, and one that I think works perfectly for this MOC. So sometimes the one-piece solution is the best solution. You don't have to break the bank coming up with some intricate design that uses thousands of pieces. Just do what's there. It works well. So I really do like that. And that sort of stark black with those wings, just it really helps to sell him being a Makuta. He looks really sinister and evil. It's really, really cool. Over to the next MOC now. This is by Iggs, and this is sort of the counterpart MOC. This is Brothers of Hatred Mutran. So I always enjoyed Mutran. He might have been one of my favorites, just in general, honestly. It was a really cool set, but certainly my favorite of this wave. And again, he's another character that's a bit of a sort of mad scientist, evil dude that does experimentation and all sorts of craziness. So it's nice to see a bit of that thrown into this MOC and sort of tied back to it. It's really, really cool. So let's talk about this MOC. I adore the cane that he's got. If we look closely at the very top there, we can see there's a little Ninjago snake head that sort of looks like this is some sort of like ornate cane that's sort of like carved to look like a snake head, which, like Malfoy's dad had that in Harry Potter, and, you can buy canes like that in the real world. So it's cool to see it reflected on a Bionicle here. It seems very fitting for the character, and it's just a really fun detail that you don't see every day, using minifigure heads as sort of ornate detailing like that. Really, really clever and really fitting. It could actually be an actual head of a snake, not actually like carved into the wood there, because, hey, he does weird experiment stuff. Maybe he's made a sentient cane. I don't know. But regardless, it's cool and it's fun. And I like the fact that it does have that curve to it, which could just be that it's some sort of ornate cane that has a weird curve to it. Or it sort of doubles as both a cane and an actual blade that you can kind of flip around and stab people with, which also kind of makes sense. It's really cool. I like, too, with this MOC, there's almost a sort of like vulture-like aesthetic to this character. The way that these beautiful shoulder pads sort of flare out to the side like that, just the sort of sharp angles of them looks really just sort of menacing and sinister, but also kind of looks like maybe the feathers around the neck of a vulture. The way that the sort of like waistcoat almost sort of looks like feathers sort of flowing down like that. Again, more sort of, bird-like, feather-like. But then you specifically look at the legs here. They do have that sort of digitally-grade leg design like that, with that sort of beautiful sort of angled curve to them that, looks a bit more sort of bird-like. But also the way that he's placed the tires on there. I adore that. I think the tires on the sort of lower leg there just sort of help to kind of buff that out and kind of round it off and tie it in with the rest of the textures of this MOC. But the inclusion of the tires around that sort of prefab two-clawed foot design there, man, it looks cool. Just the little subtle inclusion of those makes it look a little bit more sort of like bulky. It looks like there's almost a bit of posability to it, and the tires kind of covering it up. There, of course, isn't, but it kind of makes it, kind of implies that, I don't know, just the inclusion of those tires really makes those legs look just that much better. So I love seeing tires on MOCs. It's amazing what it can do. It can really, I don't know, just stretch the limits, just make it that much cooler. It's awesome. So, seriously cool leg design there. And again, there's something about that that's very bird-like, that foot design. So kind of a combination of different things. I see this guy looking very, like I said, like a vulture, kind of elements of a bat, but I would say a little bit more, bird-like of sorts, which again seems very fitting, especially for like a vulture, because they're a bit more of a sort of like sinister bird, or at least the way we portray them in media sometimes makes them seem a little bit more sinister. They're just birds trying to make their way in the galaxy. It's fine. It is what it is. But I think this aesthetic works perfectly here for this mark. I love too the inclusion of the chains along the waist there as well, whether that's just for aesthetic. He's just, I don't know, chains look cool on my belt, I'm going to put them on, whatever. It just looks nice. There's something sort of, it just looks cool. I don't have any justification for it. It just looks nice, and sometimes that's all that matters. I do like too that he has like baggy pants. I don't really know what those are, but they're nice. That's just that little pop of red and the little nice accent of dark tan there. It works well. Those could have been black, and I think it would have worked really well if they were black, but it also works well when they're dark tan like that as well. So, hey, nothing wrong with just adding an interesting little accent like that onto your color scheme. I think it can work well. Little subtle additions too to the head with these weapon pieces there, like he's got some sort of crown or something on. Little subtle thing, but I think it works well. And I also like his cape, his big old brown cape here. And also in some of these images, he has some wings. So he has the same kind of wing piece as we saw on Chirok's. But this wing, I believe, comes from the Hungarian horntail from Harry Potter. So if you're curious, that's the specific coloration of that wing design there. And, seeing multiple of them being used there looks really, really spiffy. It looks really nice. And I get the sense he can kind of hide it behind his cloak. I can't quite tell from some of these images. I don't know if they just get removed or not. But regardless, it looks cool. And I kind of like that idea, too, of him being a little bit more sort of stouted and, or stumped. What's the word? Stooped. A little bit more stooped over. I got it. Don't worry, I got there in the end. Him being a little bit more stooped over. Again, kind of like a vulture, and those wings kind of pop out of the back there, like he's got a surprise behind his back, which, kind of could have that double meaning there of like, he's gonna stab you in your back, or he's gonna, have something up his sleeve that he kind of keeps you guessing because he's a bad guy, and you're like, oh, what's his sinister plan? I don't know. Maybe I'm reaching a little bit there, and I'm just adding a bit of symbolism to something that wasn't necessarily intentional, but hey, you could draw those conclusions, and it all becomes this beautiful tapestry as you look at this mark, and you really get the sense that, hey, this guy is a bad guy and he can't be trusted, so it's pretty fitting and pretty cool. So love Mutran, and always love a good Mutran revamp. If you want to make me happy, that's the way to do it. So yeah, fantastic. I love one last thing, because it's really cool. I like the inclusion of even more sort of arms holding that orange sphere onto his torso there. Really makes it look that much more gross. Looks like he's even experimented on himself to some degree. It's kind of cool. All right, that's it for this mark. Let's move over to the next one. This is Antraz, and this is by Apathetic. So I like this, just a little sort of subtle, slight way of reimagining the set. These last two revamps we saw, they took a bit of a departure from the original source material. This one here is a lot closer to the original source material. And you know what? Sometimes a good old revamp can be as simple as that. You're just like, hey, I really like this toy, but I want to add a couple bits of armor here or there, or I just want to maybe like tweak this spot or add something here. And that's all you need. And then suddenly you're like, dang, this went from a really good set to a great set. And I'm really happy with it now. And I feel fulfilled, and I've kind of made a mock, and I'm happy. So, you know what? Little subtle things, they go a long way. So I like the fact that he's got 4 wings now. I always enjoyed those wing pieces on Antraz, so it's just good to see more of them. It's also cool to see this very lanky arm design, which again seems very fitting for a sort of more, bat-like, demon-like look for these Makuta villains here. So you're using those old Toamata sort of arm pieces there in black to achieve that look. I believe they didn't actually come in black on the original Toamata, but you did see that exact same piece, and different colors appear on the Toamata, and hey, it's got a nice sort of curve to it, so it works well here indeed. He's also got a tail, which kind of just makes sense. I know that definitely these guys are more sort of bat-inspired, and bats don't really have sort of long tails like that. But hey, if you want to sort of take a bit of inspiration from like dragons or demons and stuff, which I think works well for Makuta, and specifically these Makuta as well, it's just a little subtle detail that, works well. So nothing wrong with doing that, and certainly stuff like that, like lots of wings, sharp angles, tails, horns, all that sort of stuff. It's perfect for your Makuta. So nice to see it here. It does work well, I think. So yeah, really, really love your work, good sir. You've made a pretty bang-up revamp of Antraz here, even if it's only using a small little subtle things. It gets the job done. So love your work, good sir. On to the next mock. This is by Sly Klutz, and this is Berserker Vampira. I also liked Vampira a lot. They were certainly one of the more unique Makuta from this wave, and this revamp here has made her even more unique. So what do I like about this one? The wing design. I think the wing design is really, really cool. It's using some sort of cloth elements that came from a sort of like Ghost Dragon Ninjago set, which is a really cool set that I regret not buying. It's really interesting. It's got some beautiful colors to it, and I keep seeing people using this this cloth piece here. It's just cool. So it's awesome. This is a lovely little design there, and I like too this sort of like silver, sort of like really sharp looking kind of claws that are on the hands there. Again, that's very bat-like. Even looking at this little picture here, this little baby bat there, somewhat similar to that with the way the little claws sort of like curve to some degree. So I like that little inclusion there, very much taking a bit of inspiration from a bat and looking pretty cool. But also, speaking of bats, I like the more pronounced bat ears on this mask here. Just sort of building some sort of claw elements behind the mask there, just to really accent what already kind of was like bat ears on the mask, and making it even more prominent. It, I think, looks really, really cool. So, yeah, great to see the bat inspiration really kind of taking flight here. Pun not intended, but I'll accept it anyway. The other thing I like here is reading the description on Flickr. He said that there's a fair bit of different sources of inspiration for this character here. So with this picture here, this might mean more to you. He has some other MOCs that have similar things to this. I don't fully understand it myself. But he says Makuta Vampira he said, I took Fate class system and used Berserker class to recreate him. So if that means something to you, I'm glad, because it doesn't mean much to me. And he says he emphasized the bestial nature by making the ears bigger, which we did mention that. We did like that before. We being me, I'm only one person. I can't say we, I suppose, but I liked that. Hopefully you listening liked that too. So much like a more sort of long-eared bat. Nice, good point, good idea for inspiration. He used the pieces from the Ninjago Dragon that we spoke about before, and he said he was also inspired by the Pokemon Noivern, which he used some reference images and stuff to help build this character, which makes sense because Noivern is your sort of bat dragon thing. Very cool Pokemon, and yeah, very fitting for a bit of inspiration here. So it's nice to see that, you know, whatever this what was it called? Fate class system, whatever that sort of thing is, you're getting you a bit of inspiration, looking to Pokemon, looking to other sort of like video game characters and other Lego sets and stuff. A lot of different points that really did get those creative juices flowing there. So never be afraid to look in some weird, crazy, obscure places, or right at home with other themes that Lego has made to give you some ideas, because there's a lot of places you can get it from, even if it's something as simple as Pokemon or a set. So something to consider there. But yeah, love this take on old Vampira here. Very, very cool. So that's it for some Phantoka not Mystica. Well, maybe Mystica might be the next episode. You'll have to wait and see. That's it for some Phantoka Makuta today. Hopefully you enjoyed, and hopefully if you're planning on revamping one, this gives you some ideas. Thank you very, very much for listening. Like I said, there's that P.O. box. The information's on the screen there, and I'll make sure to put it in the description as well if that's something you want to do. No pressure. You don't have to if you don't want to. But also in the description below will be links to all the MOCs that you saw in today's episode, so be sure to check those links and see some of the other stuff that these builders have made. I'm sure they'd very much appreciate it, and I'd appreciate it if you looked on their behalf. Additionally, in the description is links to my own social media, so if you want to follow me, I'm Ben Cossy on all forms of social media, and you can see some of the cool stuff that I'm posting over on the social media. Right now, I did actually make some cool Purist custom minifigures, so if you want to look at those have been posted very, very recently. Additionally, in the description below is the submission email, so if you want to submit your own MOCs, that's the email address that you can send it to, and I might have a video coming out soon that gives a really in-depth analysis on that, so if you're still confused or you've got questions, that should answer it for you. Stay tuned for that. And finally, of course, if you're interested in joining my Patreon for as little as $1 a month, you can have access to bonus content like additional podcasts, Q&As, behind-the-scenes material, or access to my private Discord server where you can have some private chats with me and some of the really hardcore fans. But only if you want to. Again, there's no pressure for that one either. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you very much enjoyed. I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you, and bye for now.